Good evening, friends and fellow pettyheads. Kevin here, coming to you live from Saskatoon, Canada. Well, not live, obviously, this is pre recorded, but it was live when I recorded it. Okay, I'm just blathering on now. We have a very special episode today, and I just wanted to give you all a quick heads up that there is some profanity in this episode. It's not gratuitous at all, and it's all in the context of actual conversations with various people. But if you are of a sensitive disposition, maybe give this one a skip, and I will put up a bleeped version or a kid-safe version in a few weeks. Anyway, that's all from me right now. Let's get into this amazing conversation that I had just a couple of nights ago. Okay, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, folks. My name is Kevin Brown, and I am the host of the Tom Petty Project podcast. If you're expecting to hear an episode all about the timeless classic song American Girl today, I'm sorry to have to disappoint you. That'll be next week. But luckily, there's a very good reason that I'm not talking about that song today, and that's because tonight I have with me rock and roll royalty. The man whose stubborn refusal to have anyone say no to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' debut album meant that it was eventually played nationwide. We all know what happened to Tom and the Heartbreakers in the next 40 years. What you might not know is what happened to the man behind the scenes. It's my extreme pleasure and very great privilege to welcome Jon Scott to the podcast to talk about his memoir, Tom Petty and Me, and about all things Petty. Hello, Jon.
I'm so glad to be here because I admire what you're doing. It's called the Tom Petty Project, and you put your heart into your podcast. I can tell.
Absolutely love it. And you put your heart and soul into this book. So that's a great place to start. Why on earth did a guy who came up through from being a DJ and a PR guy, why did you decide to write a book?
Well, I had been writing a book for 2 years about my adventures with The Who, Leonard Skinner, Olivia Newton-John, Tom Petty. And when Tom died, I had a partner on the project. But I told him, I said, I can't write about The Who or Johnny Mellencamp, John Cougar, or Mellencamp, or I can't write about any of The Who. I got to write about Tom. And one night before I started writing, I had a dream, and I have dreams, and a lot of fans do as well. I have dreams that Tom, he speaks to me, and he told me to call my book Tom Petty and Me in a dream.
Yep.
And some people will believe that and not believe it, whatever. But and I got up at 3:00 in the morning and I typed in GoDaddy and I typed in tompettyandme.com.
Yeah.
And it was available. And I just went click. I started writing the next day. I didn't have any notepads. I got a lot of pictures, but I didn't have any notepads as far as remembering things. But they all came back to me in a flash. Right. And I just started writing, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done is to write a book. Yeah. And I've done a lot of it, whatever. But it's tough. But I feel like I did what I wanted to do. I wrote a book that you could read on an airplane from San Francisco to New York or whatever. I didn't want a 600-page Bob Dylan biography that you can barely finish one chapter in a night, and you're still on his childhood. And that's something I did not want. And I did have one kid who said, well, it's kind of short. And I said, well, that's the way I wanted it to be. Yeah. I wanted people to be able to read it in one sitting. I have people who, they tell me, I've read your book for the third time. I'm still picking up little nuances like the faxes and, stuff like that. But and the other great thing is I have so many kids buying a book and saying, please dedicate this song to my dad, who turned me on to Tom Petty when I was 11 years old. Yep. And of course, that tells us Tom Petty is multi-generational.
100%.
It will never change beyond our lifetime. Yep. And that's because he was a genius at writing songs.
Well, I was just telling my youngest daughter came to me and my wife 2 years ago and said, I want a record player, just out of the blue. And we didn't have a record player in the house, just out of the blue. And she's very tactile. She likes real books and she likes real things. So we bought her a record player. The second album she bought was Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' Greatest Hits. That was their second album right out the gate. So I was like, wow, I've raised this one well.
How old was she?
She would have been 12, 12
Yeah,
or 13 back then.
that's
Yep.
the funny thing about it. Like I said, I get so many people saying my dad turned me on when I was 11 and dedicate this song to my dad. It's like, I said, I stop sometimes and go, wow.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of artists that are multi-generational.
Not like that, no.
I mean,
No, I don't think so either. No, I don't think so. So do you think that is any part of that? Because I know that you're a Southern boy as well, like Tom, and maybe we'll start there. Maybe we'll sort of get into a little bit of, obviously we know a lot about Tom Petty's upbringing, and I know that you were born in Memphis.
well, no, I wasn't.
Oh, you weren't born in Memphis. Was that where you were raised?
My mom was, my father was in the Navy, and my mom went to Fort Myers, Florida, and I came early.
Okay.
I was born actually in Florida, which is one of the things that Tom and I said the night I went to his house. I said, where were you born? He said, Gainesville. I said, well,
yeah,
I was born in Fort Myers. He said, you're from Florida? And my mom took me home to Memphis because that's where my mom lived.
Right.
And my father's still in the service, but we were in Memphis, and what a better city to be in to hear music. My God,
No kidding.
You hear the first African-American station, I believe, was in Memphis, called WDIA. Rufus Thomas was a DJ there.
Okay.
And they played, Sister Rosetta Tharpe and B.B. King, and I got to hear all of that. And it's like,
yeah,
music is like, I feel like it's running through my veins sometimes.
Yeah.
And of course, my father, he never wanted me to listen to WDIA. Like he didn't want me to go to Beale Street either. Don't you ever go down Beale Street? And I kept going, I don't get it. Why? I don't understand.
And so do you think that was because of the music you were listening to at that time was black music? It is black music. So that's that disconnect between, well, there's this sort of social tension between the races, but the music is the same. We're all playing the same music. Why is that? Do you think that was what played into that?
My father was listening to, How Much Is That Doggy in the Window by
right.
And there was a DJ in Memphis called Dewey Phillips. He's the first DJ who played Elvis Presley.
Okay.
And I was listening that night, in my mind, that night was when rock and roll was born. I used to have a little transistor radio, and I cut out a big book, big thick paper, a thick book. I put my transistor radio in the book, and I was supposed to be at 8 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock, Dewey Phillips came on. If you don't know about Dewey Phillips, Google Dewey Phillips, and you'll understand what I'm talking about.
I absolutely will, yeah.
So I hid my transistor radio in my book, and just at 9 o'clock in the night, I was supposed to be asleep, and that's when he came on. And in 55 or 56,
right?
I heard Elvis Presley on the radio, and they played it. This guy played it 10 times in a row. So I feel like I witnessed the birth of rock and roll.
It must have just been amazing, though, because there was nothing that really sounded like that, right?
No
one sounded like that, and certainly no one moved like that,
Right. Exactly. No, you're still totally right. And my father, like I said, was listening to How Much Is That Doggy in the Window.
Yeah.
Here I am trying to get down to Beale Street or buy Elvis Presley records.
So was your mom musical? Was she into music, or?
My mom?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. My mom was she was great. She is my angel, and one of my angels. I got two. One is my daughter, and one's my mom. And she we used to call radio stations on Saturday morning, a station that did requests.
Yeah. And
she would always call, and her brother, she had 5 brothers, and she'd call them, hey, play a song for the Slankard family.
Yeah.
And they would do it, and she would just start laughing. And my mom, when she did that, I wanted to do anything in my life to make her laugh.
Yeah.
And so I told her at that time, I'm going to become a DJ. I was 10 years old or something. I don't know. I want to be a DJ. And she encouraged me all the way. They bought me a tape recorder and a microphone. And I just, played around with it. I don't know how old I was, 12, 13. And I just took a magazine and read stuff out of the magazine. And then I found out there was a radio school in Memphis called Keegan's School of Broadcasting. Johnny Cash was, he went to Keegan's Institute of Broadcasting.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before me.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there. I mean, I dropped out of school to do this because I'm going, I don't want to learn business in college. I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
I just want to be a DJ. And so my father said, you got to pay for the DJ school yourself. And so I got a job at a movie theater. And, Tom had a funny meeting with Elvis at one time when he went to, he was 10 years old, I think. But I worked at a movie theater. I was the guy behind the candy counter. And Elvis rented out the movie theaters, at midnight. And I'm thinking, and my boss said, hey, just give them whatever they want. If they come over with popcorn, whatever, Reese's bar, peanuts. And so about 50 people would come in, friends of his, because he rented the theater out at midnight. And all of a sudden, Elvis starts walking towards me. I'm going, oh my God, freaking Elvis is coming over here by himself. And I'm shaking. And he goes, how about a couple boxes of those Raisinets? And I'm literally shaking, handing him the bottle of Raisinets. And you know what he said afterwards?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Had to, right? You had to.
It was like, and I was like a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid working to my way to get to be a DJ, and drinking water, by the way.
Me too.
And so I went to work for MCA Records in 1974. And the first person that came, well, I get a call like the second day on my job saying Olivia Newton-John's coming into Memphis. Let me get that petty. And Olivia Newton-John is coming into Memphis, and we want you to take her to Nashville to meet the station in Nashville. And she has a new single out.
Right.
And so she came in Memphis, and I met her at the airport. I met her at the hotel. I had a limo pick her up, and she's just absolutely gorgeous woman. She's so sweet. And we had like 2 or 3 hours left before we had a meeting with Scott Shannon, who, I don't know if you know who Scott Shannon is, but Scott Shannon is one of the most important figures in radio in America. Okay. And so she came, and I'm just going to throw this stuff out to you. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
She came, I met her. It was 106 degrees in Memphis, and we got to the room, and she said, can I take a swim? I said, yeah, we got 2 hours. I'll just sit here and read Billboard magazine. Yeah. And so she goes in and changes into an Australian bikini. And she walks in, I'm going, oh my God. Oh my God. I've never seen anything like this.
I'll just interrupt. Are you married at this point?
Yes, I am. I'm married.
So you have to be good.
No, yeah, you don't do that when you're working for a record company, but you might think about it. But so I said, yeah, go ahead and go. And then all of a sudden I hear her go, ow, before she gets out of the room. And I said, what's wrong? What's wrong? She said, I lost my contact lens. And the room had shag carpet. So I'm down on the floor looking for a contact lens. And all of a sudden I look up and her butt is right in my face. And I'm going, oh, this is going to be a pretty good job as a promotion. But we found the contact lens, and she went and had a swim.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, we did go to Nashville.
Yeah.
And MCA gave me a cassette of all the new releases that were coming out. And so we decided to put them in the cassette machine. And as we're driving to Nashville, which was a trip, driving with Olivia and John, my God. Anyway, we would say, oh, that's pretty good. No, that song's not very good. Yeah. And then all of a sudden a song called Depot Street came on. And we both went, that's pretty good. That's a nice little reggae song. And she said, yeah, but they've got this kind of a silly name, Mudcrutch. And so I went to the radio station. I got it played on the station. And I called my boss, my first ad. I got my first ad. It's Mudcrutch. And he goes, John, it's only a single. There's no album. Nobody cares. It's on Shelter. Just work Olivia Newton-John's record.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And of course, Mudcrutch comes back into the book, as you know.
Yep.
And I completely forget about Mudcrutch. I don't even knew who the lead singer was. All I know is I like the song.
I think everyone outside Gainesville forgot about who Mudcrutch were, right? Everyone in Gainesville loved them outside Gainesville.
So yeah. They used to do a lot of free concerts in the park.
Yeah.
And
it's that's the thing. I've heard that before. I think it's a great name for a band. You don't forget it. It's a name that sticks in your brain because it is weird, you know.
Well, it's so funny. Like I said, when I went to the station in Nashville, they said, "Oh, this is a cool song. We're going to add it to our playlist." And little did I know, those are the only 3 stations in America that had added Mudcrutch to their playlist.
Yeah.
But it was a cool little song, you know, and it came back around 3 years later, to serendipitously bond Tom and I at that point. We're not at that point yet, but
yeah. So when did you first hear John Mellencamp and Johnny Cougar as he was then? And what was that whole process?
Well, it was a pretty funny process. I had listened to the Johnny Cougar album, and there were 2 or 3 songs that I liked. Some of them he did cover songs of Jailhouse Rock, whatever. And I was like, well, he's not Elvis, but there's 3 songs that I really liked. And every Monday there's a meeting of all the staff at MCA, the promotion people, the sales people, press people, and they're in one room, and everybody's blaming everybody, of course, salespeople blaming this guy, whatever. But at the end of the meeting, the president goes, "Has anybody heard this record by this kid named Johnny Cougar?" And I looked around, nobody else had raised their hand, so I raised my hand and I said, "Yeah, I kind of like a few of those songs in that album." Yeah. He said, "Which one?" I said, "Well, it's called Chestnut Street Revisited." He put it on, and maybe 30 seconds later, he took it and tossed it into the garbage can and said, "Who would play a fucking record by some kid named Johnny Cougar?" Oh, his manager, Tony DeFries, must have gave him that name. And the minute I heard Tony DeFries, I thought David Bowie, which our station had been playing for a long time.
Yeah.
And after the meeting, I mean, I started thinking, man, bands' careers can be just thrown away in 30 seconds. And that's the sad part of the business, but it happened. But after the meeting, the A&R guy who had signed them, which the president had said, "Who signed this guy, Johnny Cougar?" And the A&R guy said, "I did." And he said, "Why?" He said, "Well, because of a couple of demos, and he was managed by Tony DeFries, David Bowie's architect." Yeah. And David had fired him by this particular time. So I think he thought, well, Johnny Cougar is the new Midwestern David Bowie.
Right.
And
which he definitely isn't.
Well,
very, very different.
Well, yes and no. I mean, he doesn't. His new song is with Bruce Springsteen. They do a duet.
Right.
And anyway, after the meeting, the A&R guy comes up to me and said, "Do you really like some of these songs?" I said, "Yeah, they're pretty cool songs." And he said, "Do you want to go see them?" And I went, "Yeah, sure." He said, "Nobody's ever seen them live at the company. Where do I have to go?" He said, "Seymour, Indiana." I'm going, "Why? Where's Seymour, Indiana?" And I found out that it's like an hour outside Indianapolis. And I fly there. And you can edit some of this stuff out. But
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
It's pretty cool because I get to Seymour, Indiana, and I'm meeting with my fellow MCA Cleveland promotion man named Dave Lonco. But I get there and there's this parade going down Main Street. And I'm going, it's not the 4th of July. It's not Memorial Day. Why is there a parade today? And the baton twirlers were out there and the mayor's waving hello to everybody. And I keep getting closer going, what the hell is going on a Saturday in Seymour, Indiana? And all of a sudden I see a Cadillac, a limousine.
Okay.
One of those things where the guy could stand up and wave or whatever. And I see this kid with a rolled up sleeve with cigarettes in his pocket. And I get closer going, it says Johnny Cougar Day in Seymour, Indiana. And I'm going, what? Why?
No way.
Why is there Johnny Cougar Day? And but funny, as I got closer, there were three kids along the route said, "Hey, Mellencamp, you're fucking Johnny Cougar." Ha 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 ha. And so I'm completely intrigued now about what. And John just shot him back the finger.
Yeah.
And I will say that John Cougar usually I'm sorry about this, but the word "fuck" is about the first thing out of his mouth every time. Still
Yeah.
is.
I've got lots of friends like that.
Anyway, I went back to the hotel, met Dave, and we went to the diner next door and see a picture of Johnny Cougar on the wall. We're going to the waitress. She came and said, "Who's this guy, Johnny Cougar?" I mean, we knew, but he's our local rock god, and a lot of people don't like him because he's a tough guy, but there's a lot of people that do like him. And so Dave and I went to the concert at the Seymour, Indiana National Guard Armory, maybe 250 people. And we walk in thinking nobody knew we were there. And a guy comes up and says, "Hey, are you the two guys from MCA?" And we go, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I've got your seats." So I'm going to myself, well, we were thinking, well, if we sit in the back row, he's not very good, we'll just leave.
Yep.
And so we're walking down the aisle, and all of a sudden we hear these people in the audience going, "Hey, there's the two MCA guys. There's the two." And it's like, so they sit me on the front row, right under his microphone. And then the lights go out, and a girl is on a harp playing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." And I'm going, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And then John Cougar comes out, a big sign lights up Johnny Cougar. And he comes out acoustically and plays the first song. And I'm right underneath his microphone. And he plays the song that I like, Chestnut Street Revisited. Right. And it was kind of looking at me like, "What do you think now, Mr. MCA guy?"
Yeah.
And I was totally, the minute we heard that song, my partner Dave Blanco and I we knew this was something special. And the band came out, and he had so many great session players. Kenny is it Aronoff? I'm not sure.
Aronoff, yeah.
Yeah, he was his drummer.
That was his drummer. I didn't know that was his drummer. Wow.
Yeah, and Kenny's gone on to have a great career. I mean,
absolutely.
Big time career. And they the band was called Tiger Beat, Johnny Cougar and Tiger Beat.
Okay.
And we went after the show afterwards, and we were told not to really tell him if we liked him, because they were gonna drop him from the label.
Yeah.
And then our guy kind of went out on a limb and said, "Hey, go see him." Nobody's ever seen him from MCA. And the minute he did that song, me and my buddy looked at each other like, "Oh my God." And then Tiger Beat came out, and they were tight as hell.
Yeah.
And he just kicked our ass. And the second song, we're going, "Oh my God, this kid is incredible."
Yeah.
But really, we couldn't, after the show, we couldn't really say, "Oh, I love you, you're great," because MCA was considering dropping him from the label.
And how old is Mellencamp at this point?
I'm guessing 19, 20.
Oh man, so just a kid.
Like a kid, and the song that I liked was called "Chestnut Street Revisited."
Yeah,
and it's the lines in the song are, "I'm just a small town boy being used like a toy, working from 9 to 5."
Yeah,
and anyway, so he goes, "When are you guys going back to Los Angeles?" We went, "Tomorrow." And he went, No, you guys got to stay, come over to my house, spend the night at my house, get out of that crappy motel you're in, which had shag carpet, and a lava lamp." Seriously. And so we went, "Well, okay." And I went back to my room and kind of check, get my stuff together. And I called the MCA A&R guy that night. I said, Bob is his name. He said, "John, why are you calling me this late?" And I'm going, "Johnny Cougar is a freaking superstar. Do not drop him from the label." He said, "John, are you high?" I went, "Well, my friend and I did have one joint, but this kid's incredible." And so he said, "Look, it's late. Let's go over this when you get back to Los Angeles on Monday." And so we took up John's invitation to go to his house, and we get there, and it's like a 40-acre house, gigantic house, 40 acres of land. And I'm kind of going, well, this kid is either rich or whatever. It turns out it's his parents' house.
Yep.
And so we spent the night with John that night. My partner Dave Lonco and I spent the night there. We talked to him. Well, we played a flag football game. I don't know if you want to hear about this, but I'll just throw it in.
Yeah, throw it in. Yeah.
So John Mellencamp says we had the barbecue, and it's like a Norman Rockwell picture of Indiana. And I was on his team, and he threw a pass to one of the guys in his band. It's flag football.
Yeah.
And he goes, and the guy drops it. He goes, "You son of a bitch, don't ever effing drop a pass from me, son of a beehive," whatever. And then all of a sudden, the other guy said, "Oh, hey, little bastard, shut up." And that was his nickname, the little bastard. Anyway, so we spent the night there, and we, we're sitting around drinking. "What do you think about my name?" And I'm going, "Well," he said, "Yeah, you hate it, don't you?" I went, "Well, I think Jon Mellencamp would have been better." He said, "Well, my manager, Tony DeFries, said nobody could pronounce Mellencamp. So you're either going to be Johnny Cougar or Johnny Puma. And I've decided you're going to be Johnny Cougar." And John did not know this until the records arrived at his house. He opened them up, and he's Johnny Cougar. He was pissed.
Yeah.
And so I went back to Los Angeles, told the story of what we saw and heard, and nobody. I don't think they really believed this. I think we were just two stoned guys. But no, we saw it, and we heard it, and at that point, I said, I think I can get this record played. That was my job, to get records played at radio stations.
Yep.
And when I would call stations, they'd go, "Johnny Cougar is at a top 40. I would call FM stations. That was my job, album promotion.
Yep.
And no, it's not a top 40 guy. He's like the Midwestern Bruce Springsteen, doing the same thing as the manager said. And everybody go, "Oh yeah, that's right. Sure." So at that point, some stations started adding the record, and I'm going, well, I got a shot here. And all of a sudden it started slowing down. And I worked at Universal Amphitheater and had an idea to rent a Cougar and take him to all the radio stations in Los Angeles, take him to Tower Records, and just create a buzz. Don't tell anybody we're coming over with the artist, just saying we're coming over with Johnny Cougar. And the first station we went to, they went, "You're out of your freaking mind. We're not going out." Well, the Cougar had a handler. Right. And she said, "Oh no, it's been in Tarzan movie. It's declawed." But he was growling. And so
it's a cougar. It's a freaking cougar. It's still got teeth.
Freaking cougar. It's a live. It costs us $5,000. I have to call Universal Casting and say, "Wow, I would like to rent a cougar tomorrow." And the guy said, "Can I talk to your boss?" Talk to my boss. Anyway, it cost $5,000 to rent the cougar and the handler. And MCA is going, "Are you crazy? Somebody can get killed here." And I didn't think about that, but so we go, and the pictures of Tower Records made the trade magazines. And so I'm going, well, we've got some traction here. And it was still tough, but I thought to myself, there's a station in Cleveland called WMMS, one of the biggest stations in America, and they played David Bowie, just like my station did in Memphis. So I thought, I'll fly to Cleveland and get them to add Johnny Cougar, because they know who Tony DeFries is, like I did.
Yeah.
And I got there, and they were going, "We haven't even listened to this record because his name is Johnny Cougar. Is this like a top 40 record?" We're going, "Oh, no. It's like, Midwestern Bruce Springsteen."
Yeah.
Anyway, they said, "Well, we'll meet you." My music director, I'm not going to listen to it. Program director wouldn't even listen to it. He said, "I'm going to give it to my music director and let him listen to it." So I thought, well, we have a chance. The next morning we meet with the music director and the program director. The music director comes in and says, hey, I love this kid, Johnny Cougar. And I'm going, oh, to myself, I'm going, great. The program director said, well, I don't, and we're not playing it.
Yeah.
And I blurred out, well, I'm just going to stay in Cleveland until you add the record. They start laughing, of course. I don't know why I said that. Okay. Like a lot of times in my life. But they started laughing. You're going to be here for a while. And so our plan was every morning, the next day, we take morning guy breakfast, give him a Johnny Cougar record, and leave. We go to lunch, take the guy at lunch, a record, and he was going, this isn't going to work, John. And we take the guy at dinner, and we taped a joint around the back of his record because he was the nighttime guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did this for 6 days.
Oh my.
And my boss is going, why are you staying in Cleveland for 6 days? Well, because I think I can get them to add this record. And so my partner, Dave Blanco at MCA Records said, I have an idea. This is on the 6th day. I'm going, oh my God, 7th day. Anyway, he said, we're going to smoke them out tomorrow. Okay. What do you mean? So he goes upstairs, gets this scrapbook. And I'm thinking, well, he's got pictures in there or something. And you open the scrapbook, and there's on each page, there's like 6 big size baggies. And each one of them, like, for example, had Panama Red 63, and then a piece of hash. It was like Moroccan, 74. He was a pot connoisseur.
Right.
So he said, we're going to smoke them out tomorrow. That's my plan. I'm going to tell them we're going to a new restaurant. I can't find it, and we're going to just smoke them out. So we picked them up, and we started smoking right away. And it looked like a Cheech and Chong car with smoke coming out of the car. And so, all of a sudden the program director says, where is this restaurant? And Dave said, it's around here somewhere. And so he pops in the song I like, Chestnut Street Revisited. And the program director turns around and said, this is sounding better than it did the other day. I'm not sure why, but so we're going to add the record, John. Just go home. Get out of here. You've been here 6 days. And I go back and tell my story.
Yeah.
And so a few stations around Cleveland started adding the record, Toledo and different, because MMS was a big station back then.
Okay.
And so I feel I've got the biggest station in America playing the record now, little stations around it. And the president comes to me and says, stop working this record.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I can't stop. I just got the biggest station in America to play this record. He said, I don't care. Stop working Johnny Cougar. We're going to drop him from the label. We don't like him. The first meeting here in Los Angeles, he told the head of international promotion to go fuck himself. We don't like his music. We don't like his name. We don't like his manager. Stop working the record. And I said, I can't.
Yeah.
And they went, yes, you can. You're fired.
Just like that.
11 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden I've been at MCA for months, maybe a year, going, this is like, for a kid from Memphis, this is like a dream.
Yeah.
Being on the back lot of Universal Studios. But anyway, so a security guard walked me out to my car, and I had a nice parking lot with my name on it.
Yeah.
And I left going home going, what the hell just happened? I was just doing my job.
Yeah.
And they only gave me 1 week. What do you call it? 1 week.
Like a severance thing.
Yeah, severance thing. I'm going.
Yeah.
And so I went back to the president. No, it's standard that people get 2 weeks pay. And he said, no, you get in 1 week. And I left with my tail between my legs,
Yeah.
But over the weekend, I still had my little pass. They hadn't got rid of that to get into the building. And people have told me that I dumped something in the president's office in his drawer that lingered for 3 days until Monday. And I think you know what I'm talking about. I left it in his drawer.
I think I do.
But when he told me I only had 1 week severance, I saw a Who tape sitting, a Pete Townsend tape sitting on his desk, and I grabbed it because it was the new Pete Townsend solo album.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'll get these guys back. But anyway, so I'm without a job for 30 days, and I'm going. I just bought a house, and my wife is going, what's happening? And I'm kind of going, I don't know.
Yeah.
And 30 days later, a guy by the name of Charlie Miner called me from ABC Records and said, do you want to take this job? Our album promotion guy is gone. And I didn't even ask for what the salary was. I just said, yes. Yeah. And so next thing that happened is the doorbell rang, and there was a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne for me and a dozen red roses for my wife's, and a note from Charlie going, you will love working with me. And Charlie Miner was the kingpin of top 40 radio at the time. There was nobody like Charlie Miner. So yeah, he hired me.
Yeah.
And I'm watching him work, and I'm going, good God, this guy's like a machine.
Right.
And so 3 days later into my job, I opened my closet door, and a record fell out, and there's a white jacket. And I opened the vinyl up, and there's nothing on the vinyl. And I'm kind of a radio guy. And I said, well, I'm just going to skip lunch right now. I'm going to listen to this record.
Yeah.
I hear a breakdown. I hear American Girl. And every hair on my body is standing up. There's goosebumps going, oh my God, these guys are good. Who the hell are they? So I said, I got to listen to it again in headphones this time. And all I tell you is, if you have never listened to the first album of Tom Petty's on headphones, do it.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's the only way to listen to music if you really want to hear it.
Yeah, well, Tom Petty and them had this thing where vocals were going back and forth, and guitars were going, Mike Campbell's guitars were going this way in your brain. Yep. So the second time I listened to it, I even got more in a trance. And I sat there maybe for 5-10 minutes going, God almighty, this is a good record. So I went to my boss, Charlie Miner. I held up this white album. I said, who are these guys? And he grabbed the record out of his sleeve. And 10 seconds later, he goes, oh, that's that punk band, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And I'm going, what do you mean a punk band? This is not a punk band, Charlie.
Not even close. I mean, how do you listen to Breakdown and come up with punk?
Because he never listened to the record.
Well, or Mystery Man or Hometown Blues. Like, these are not punk songs. I mean,
he
holy
never
moly.
Listened to the record because he wanted his promotion people to promote Marilyn McCoo and Billy Davis.
Yeah.
And the cover, threw off a lot of people because he had black leather jacket on, bullets around his neck. And that threw a lot of people. It did. And when he said they're a punk band, I'm going, what are you talking about? This is one of the greatest rock and roll records I've heard in freaking years.
Yeah.
And he said, come on. I said, no, Charlie. He said, well, we're dropping him from the label because it's been out for 8 months, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean you're dropping him from the label? He said, well, they're a punk band. That's what radio's telling us, they're a punk band. And I was not buying that at all because I knew what I heard.
Yeah.
Like, when you listen to a record, I can tell right from now, you hear a record you like, you're going to go, holy crap.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah. But I like there's a quote later on in the book where you say, you tell someone, look, just ignore the black jacket and the bullets around his neck. Just listen to the fucking record. Please just listen to the record.
So I begged Charlie to give me 6 weeks to try and get this record played on the radio. That was my job, calling radio station.
Yeah.
And he said, no, we're dropping him. And I got down on my knees and I begged him, just give me 6 weeks. That's all I want, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And he finally said, all right, you got 6 weeks. Clock is counting right now. And so I go back to my office and I start calling radio stations that were friends of mine. They go, well, is this that punk guy? I'm going, oh my God, this cover of Tom Petty's record just hurt him like crazy.
Yeah.
And people were never playing Jackson Browne and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Linda Ronstadt and Joni Mitchell, and there was no punk records really at that time being played. Maybe a few, but not many. And so I was kind of baffled calling my friends at radio going, oh, we didn't even listen to it. Never did have the chance to ask Tom, why did you do that cover on the first record?
Yeah, you wonder, hey, because you think, obviously, I mean, it's the first album and they're not going to invest all their money into a new act, but you would think that someone would say, well, just image-wise, does this album cover align with the music that's on the disc? I mean, you can be abstract with album covers, but if it's going to be a person, it should represent who they are.
Right.
And that definitely, like you said, I mean, I think that definitely threw them off. Well, 8 months. There you go, 8 months.
For 8 months, the record had been out and it went so 12,000 copies.
Yeah.
And there's some stations that did play it in San Francisco, at KSAN in San Francisco, and Boston, WBCN. They were kind of like the two stations that were playing it and getting reaction. And there was a few others in San Jose, but mostly nobody was playing the record.
Right.
Except for these 3 or 4 stations. And I was going, I'm looking at my boss would walk by and go, it's, you get 5 days left here. Are you getting any ads in this guy, Tom Petty? And I'm really struggling. I really am.
Yeah.
And that's when my friend Charlie Kendall came to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And Charlie was a friend of mine. He was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And when I was a DJ, he used to listen to me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then all of a sudden he got transferred to Los Angeles to start a new rock station and called KWST.
Right.
They were competing with KMET in Los Angeles, the big rock station.
Yeah.
Mitchell Reed and Jim Ladd and the last DJ. And
yep.
And so I took the record over to Charlie's house. This is like a day or 2 after I had heard it. And he said, I have no idea who these guys are. Are they a punk band? I'm, oh God. Just listen to this record. He sat down, put the headphones on. And afterwards, he was in a trance. He was like,
yeah,
who the hell are these guys? This is one of the best effing records I've heard in years. So to myself, I'm going, thank God.
Someone else gets it. Yeah.
Yeah. Feels the way I do. And so he said, are they any good live? And I'm like, I just discovered the record by accident 3 days ago. I have no clue if they're any good. But I did know they're playing the Whiskey this coming Saturday night by chance, opening for Blondie. And he was going, we're going, right? I went, hell yeah, we're going. Because at that time, I was like a Tom Petty fanatic.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to get people from ABC Records to go to the concert with me that night, the Whiskey. And like nobody gave a damn about him. They just said his career's over. It's 8 months old.
Yeah.
And kind of at that point, I didn't care. But we get to the concert, and first record, I think he played "Oh Carol" by Chuck Berry song.
Yeah.
And Charlie and I looked at each other and went, God dang. And then he played Breakdown, and Charlie leans over to me and said, I'm going to start playing this record once an hour, every hour on Monday morning.
So cool.
And the promo man, I'm like, this is huge.
Yeah.
And so they played a 35-minute set, no encore. There was probably 15 people in the Whiskey at the time.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who Tom Petty was. And so I said, I've got to go meet this guy.
Yeah. I was going to say to you, John, though, quickly, though, that when you talk about that in the book, but I think there's something about if you can come out and play to 15 people and play with that same energy and intensity and passion, that it can still impress two music people. You're not just punters, you're industry professionals. That says something about a band, right? If you've got 500 people in a room and there's already an energy there, well, you can feed off that. 15 people, if you can still rock the joint, man, you know you've got something there, right?
Absolutely. And that's when I said, well, they did a 35-minute set, no encore. And Charlie and I are looking at each other going, my God, this band is good. So I said, well, I got to meet this guy, Tom Petty.
Yeah.
So I go upstairs and there he is. He's wiping sweat off his face with a towel. And I said, hey, Tom Petty, my name is Jon Scott. I'm the new guy at ABC Records. And he looked at me and said, go fuck yourself. At that point, I knew why he was frustrated, because we were about to drop him.
Yeah.
His record had sold 12,000 copies. He had been beat up by the Machine. So I did understand why, but at the time he was my favorite band in the world, the new band I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you ever heard your record on the radio in Los Angeles? In Los Angeles, he went, no, why? I said, well, there's a new station in town that's going to play your record once an hour, every hour. And he went, go fuck yourself. And you can edit this out if you want, but
No.
Tom said, hey, Stan Lynch,
Yeah.
tell this guy what ABC Records stands for. And I'm brand new. I have no clue what he's going to say.
Right.
ABC. And Stan said, it stands for a bunch of cocksuckers.
Yes.
And again, I just kind of knew that they'd just been beat up by this machine.
Yeah.
Not promoting. They were advertising them in punk magazines and teen magazines. Anyway, so after Stan told us what it was, Tom said, just get out of here. These two guys are another two ABC nut jobs.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're doing. You're telling me you're going to break. I told him I'm going to break your career wide open. Yeah. He just started laughing. And I think I got another barrage of F-bombs.
Right.
And he said, just get out of here. And the roadie came over, starting to usher us out. And like, again, I don't know why I'm saying this, because I didn't know what I was doing. I said, Tom Petty, my name is Jon Scott. Don't you ever forget my name, because every time you hear your record on the radio, you're going to think of me. And again, this is just flying out of my mouth. I have no clue that I can do what I'm saying, but I knew. And Charlie and I walked out of the whiskey being thrown out, and we were laughing at each other because we were saying he has no idea what's about to happen. Yeah. And Wednesday, the following Wednesday, the manager called me up and said, who are you? I said, well, I'm the new guy at ABC. He said, well, you've pissed off my artist.
That's Tony. Tony was,
yeah. I love Tony. But he said, you pissed off my artist. You told me you're going to break his career. You know you can't do it. It's 8 months old. We're being dropped. Who are you? I said, I love your band. That's all. Yeah. And then Friday, well, I set up a meeting with Tony to go meet him. And Friday, I get a call. My assistant said, Tom Petty's on the phone. I'm going, oh my God. This could go either way. I don't know if he's going to tell me to do whatever, you know. But I picked up the phone and I said, hey, Tom, how you doing? He said, John, and he's got a Southern drawl. Of course, he's from the South. Yep. He said, my friends are telling me they're hearing my record on the radio a lot. And I just heard that Tower Records ordered 250 copies of my record. Are you serious about what you're talking about? I went, Tom, I'm going to break your career wide open. He said, well, I want to meet you. I said, how about tonight? He said, okay. I scribbled his address down and I flew over there, man. Yeah. Because I knew. Yeah. I knew. And I think you know what that feeling is.
Absolutely. I think, again, I'm going to not interrupt too much, but the first time you hear a great album, it's the feeling of it, right? I remember the first time I used to sit in front of my dad's record player and playing T-Rex and Kinks, and the first time I dropped the needle on Led Zepp 4 and Black Dog kicks in, it's just like, whoa, what is this? This is for me. And it hits you there, right? You just know.
It's like Procol Harum, Denny Cordell at Shelter produced that record, and you hear Lighter Shade of Pale, and you go, oh my God, it's a freaking great record.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, so I go to Tom's house, and I walk in the door and I see a big Confederate flag, and you know, we didn't really know what the Confederate flag stood for as kids. We were really never taught about the Civil War if you're living in the South. Yeah, of course. Anyway, I said, well, this is good. He's a Southern boy, I'm a Southern boy. And he said, you want to go outside and smoke a joint? And I said, sure, let's go. And I told him about my career, except for the Johnny Cougar part. Yeah. And I said, well, have you been in the other bands? He said, yeah, you never heard of them. They're called Mudcrutch. And I go, you mean Depot Street? How the hell do you know Depot Street, Tom? And this is another part of the story that kind of like, it was serendipity all the way. This was supposed to meant to happen. Yeah. And I tell him while I worked at MCA Records, I loved Mudcrutch. And they never had an album out. They were dropped from MCA. And we just stared at each other for about 30 seconds, like, wait a minute. He said, you're telling me you're going to break my career and you know who Mudcrutch is. he said, only 3 stations in America played Mudcrutch. And I said, I got 2 of the stations.
Yeah.
And he's looking at me like, this is like this moment of, I can't even describe this moment. We just stared at each other like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments where I can't even explain it. It was like one of those blissful moments of we just go and look at each other going, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I went and he said, you want to hear some stuff we've been working on? I went, yeah, sure. We go inside, he's got a tape recorder, a little small tape recorder. He plays Listen to Her Heart.
Yeah.
And I said, play that song again. I must have said, play it 5 times in a row because it blew me away. So by that time, Breakdown had started making some noise at the FM stations.
Yeah.
And I called KSAN in San Francisco. I said, can you guys keep playing Breakdown? She said, John, we've been playing it for 8 months. How can I play Breakdown again? She said, give me something new, like a live version. And I went, yeah, bingo, live version. And I called Tom. I said, would you like to do a concert with Charlie Kendall's station? And I need a live breakdown. It's never been recorded live. And I said, where would you like to do this? If you did this, where would you like to do it? Capitol Records in Los Angeles. So I called Capitol Records and I booked a concert there, live broadcast on KWST. We had 50 contest winners sitting in the floor of the big Capitol Records recording studio, and Frank Sinatra recorded there, and Dean Martin. And anyway, they give me.
I was just going to say though, I love the way that, and you do this in the book. I love how you just throw out these names like, oh, I just booked the Capitol Records studio, as if that's as if that's nothing. That's me just booking a pizza. It's so much. It's so cool. I love it.
I know. You don't have to go. Can we do a concert with Tom Petty? Of course, nobody knew who he was, but we booked it. And I told Tom beforehand, I said, I need the baddest kick-ass version of Breakdown you've ever done in your life.
Yeah.
And he knew what I was talking about. And he did like a 7-minute version of Breakdown. It's on one of the Buried Treasure, I think, albums from Capitol Records. And man, Mike Campbell just kills it. One of the greatest guitar players there is in the world. He doesn't like his dues, but anyway, when we heard the live version of Breakdown, we put it on a reel-to-reel tape, and we sent it to every station, FM station in America. Yeah. And it was 7 minutes long, and all of a sudden, people started playing that record.
Isn't that crazy? 7 minutes and people playing it.
Because it was that kick-ass. You go back and listen to Tom Petty Breakdown at Capitol Records. It's on one of the discs.
It is on one of the, maybe it's on, would it be on Live Anthology or?
Yeah, it's on one of them, and it's just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And I think that was the song. We sent out reel-to-reel tapes to every FM station in America.
God, that must have been expensive, because reel-to-reel wasn't cheap.
I don't know. ABC had their own studio there.
Okay.
All I know is I just said, give me 100 reel-to-reel versions of this. 100 copies of this version of Breakdown. And we sent it out to every station. I'm not sure if that's the time I said, hey, just listen to the fucking record. Don't look at the And and all of a sudden, people started FM stations started playing Breakdown. And all of a sudden, my boss, who had been the guy who said, don't promote Tom Petty, said, I think you're onto something here. I'm going to get it played at Top 40 Radio. Yeah. All of a sudden, Top 40 Radio started playing the single version of Breakdown. And all of a sudden, every FM station in America started playing Breakdown. Yeah. And he said, I think you're onto something. I went, I know I'm onto something. This is one of the greatest rock bands I've ever seen in my life. So anyway, he said, well, I'm going to try to make it a hit. I'm going to go to Top 40 to try to make this record a hit. It had been released in 1976. Yeah. Nothing happened. Nothing, yeah. In 1977, we re-released it towards the end of the year. And all of a sudden, top 40 stations started playing it.
Yeah.
It made it to number 40 on the charts. A record that had been out for 8 months.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
Record that's 8 months on, all of a sudden it's starting to happen.
Well, a rock and roll record back then, even more so, right? I mean, it just, because there were so many good bands coming through that if you didn't make it, you just, like you said, I mean, Christ, I mean, 6 weeks away from that record just being dropped. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying, actually, because that could have just disappeared. Well, that whole record just disappeared.
So many artists, like I said, a president of a record company put their record on the turntable and go, I don't like this record, toss it in the can. This guy, his career is over.
And so that must be so, I can't even imagine how frustrating that is for A&R and the PR guys, where you know that this is quality, and you get someone who's not a music guy, he's a numbers guy, he's a money guy, who's making the final decision. That must be a tough industry to work in.
Oh my God, it was. Yeah. But this guy named Charlie Kendall, who was my friend at KWST, he started playing the record once an hour, every hour.
Yeah.
Our Records ordered 500 copies in the middle of the week.
And all of a sudden,
the sales guys are coming in to me going, what are you doing? This record's 8 months old. I said, it's a hit record.
Yeah.
And anyway, the live version is what I really think broke Tom Petty's career, because nobody ever heard Breakdown live.
Yeah.
Especially as badass as this one was. And
was that common back then, John? Was it common for bands to sort of record live versions of their songs and send those out to the radio as well, alongside the?
No, it wasn't common.
I think so. So that live version of Breakdown hits big, and that's the one that you think is.
It is. The FM stations are going all over the 7-minute version. The top 40 stations are feeling that because it's selling. It's actually selling.
Yeah.
And they play the short version. And my boss, Charlie Miner, said, I'm going to make it a hit record on the top 40 side.
Yeah.
And so he goes to number 40 on the charts. He came in one day and said, okay, your 6 weeks are over. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. It's me again. This is where we're going to wrap up this first episode. John has done what he set out to do and broken Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' career wide open against the odds in 6 weeks, or just less than 6 weeks. But the story's far from over. And next week, I'll give you the next part of this fantastic discussion in which he'll talk about how his relationship with Tom grew over the years, what Tom means to him artistically and personally, and what the future holds. We also have a good laugh about fax machines. Until we meet again, keep listening to Tom Petty and share his music. Try to be kind. Try to say I love you to someone at least once a day. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll be back with you next week for part 2. Bye-bye.